Welcome to another episode of Be Fearless Podcast. And oh my God, I want to say thank you and give a big shout out to Nigeria and South Africa for picking up the podcast this month. I'm so thankful and I appreciate your support from that side of the country. It's really exciting for me, and thank you for supporting the podcast. It means the world. Thank you so much. Today, our guest is a keynote speaker, author of Stretching Your Faith and Exit Wilderness. She's a certified yoga therapist, founder of YogaFaith, and teaching somatic movement through dance and yoga for more than 25 years. She travels the globe to aid young trafficked survivors through practices of yoga, dance, and somatics. She's a passionate about helping people all over the world to live a life of purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the one, the only Michelle Thielen. Hi, how are you?
Hello, Dagmar. It's so
Hi,
good to see
welcome.
you.
Welcome to the
Thank
Be
you
Fearless
so
podcast. Where are you? Where are you today? From where you're talking to us?
Yes, I'm coming from Seattle area in the Pacific Northwest. I travel a lot, but I love coming home. So I'm at home sweet home right now.
Awesome. I love it. I have never visited Seattle. I
What?
need to go there. I haven't, I think that's one of the states and cities I have not go visit yet. I definitely need to make a trip on purpose.
Yes. Well, we've been enjoying blue skies and just a beautiful early summer. So this is the time to come. Spring, summer, fall is beautiful. Anytime, anytime.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's really tempting. Like you said, early summer. Here, I'm in Virginia, and let me tell you, it's been raining like crazy for the past month. I'm like, where is summer? Like, I need the
Yeah.
bright sunshine out there. Just bring
Yeah.
it.
Well, let's just go meet in Cabo. How's that? That's a nice middle
Oh,
ground.
yes, definitely. I'm gonna start planning.
Okay,
Well,
sounds good.
Michelle, for the audience out there that doesn't know you yet, who was Michelle Thielen growing up and what was her dream?
Oh my goodness. I always wanted to be a dancer, an actress, or all of the creatives I've always gravitated towards. And I've been in dance since I was 5 years old. So movement has always been a part of my journey. And I told God at a really young, ripe age of 5 that I wanted to travel the world and see the world. And somehow he's been so good to me that he allowed me to travel the world with and through dance and yoga and somatics and all the fun things you just mentioned. So it's been really a dream come true. It's been a lot of work and not an easy path, but we stay the course. And that's why I'm excited to be here with you today and all that you offer your audience, that we can encourage them that it will happen if you stay the course. And so in such a time as the perfect timing, it will indeed happen.
Oh, yes, and I love it. Thank you so much for inspiring our audience already.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you do, because you are a speaker, you're an author, you are a yoga instructor, and I love women that have more than one passion. Like, it's so inspiring, and I love, I just want people to know that they don't have to stick to one thing,
That's
that
right.
they can pursue all the things that they love and do with passion and inspire the people to do the same. And I love women that have more than one, how can I say, more than one talent. I like, is amazing. Tell us what got you into yoga.
Well, I used to be a dancer with the WNBA and the NBA in Portland, Oregon. So the Trailblazers and the Portland Fire and different professional dance teams like radio stations and whatnot. And we were actually required to take yoga as an injury prevention twice a week. So that's kind of how I started doing it consistently. I had done it prior, but this was like a consistent practice and really started to change the way I danced and moved and was really injury prevention. And so it's a really low impact. I feel like anyone and everyone can do yoga, whether it's, on your feet or in a chair or in a hospital bed. And so it's been one of those things that I literally get to share with anyone wherever I go. And I guess, 5 years old was a really big year because I also started piano in that year. And so when you start to talk about many passions, there was a time when I kind of had to bunker down and hone in. And after my dancing career, I focused in on yoga. And it's just such a beautiful gift when you can marry the mind, the body, the spirit, and the soul. So it really is different than any physical activity because of that integration. So it is something that I love sharing. I also share it. You mentioned this in the beginning with my traffic survivors. I work with very young traffic survivors, anywhere from 4 years old to 13. And I get to share with them the gifts of breathing, of moving, and many of them really can't take a deep breath. They've never taken a deep breath in their whole life. So really just to get people, including children, to befriend their body and to come back in this internal landscape, which can be really chaotic and messy. And it's just such a beautiful gift to share. And like I said, anybody, anywhere can do it.
Yes, I love that. And so you do the yoga, you founded YogaFaith. Talk to us about YogaFaith. What is this organization and what do you, I know you mentioned that you help young women that have been trafficked and are traffic survivors through this organization as well, but like overall, what else does Yoga Faith dedicates?
Well, that's such a good question. Thank you for asking it. And I do want to just back up just a little and say, when you do have a lot of passions, which I know a lot of your audience does, and we have to work this maybe job because it provides a paycheck or health insurance, and we have these little side hustles, which we really want to breathe into these dreams and make them our full-time dream. And that's really what Yoga Faith has become, is something that I wanted to do, but I really needed a paycheck and health insurance and to pay the bills. And
Yes.
so when you have a dream or when you have these passions, I just want to say to whoever is listening who needs to hear this, that when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, your people will find you. So you don't have to worry about somebody's already doing this or someone's in this space. In my space in 2024, there's almost $6 trillion in the wellness industry. So for those of you who are listening that has a product or a service in the wellness industry, which I know is a large part of your audience,
Yes.
there is space for your dream. Even if you're doing something identical to somebody else, they don't have your gifts or your talents. And so I just want to say, focus on your dreams, your talents, your God-given destiny, because nobody else is doing it like you're doing it. And so 11 years ago in 2013 is when I had this dream of combining what yoga already really does a great job at, our mind, body, our spirit. But for me, it was my Christian faith. And a lot of Christians think they can't practice yoga. A lot of yogis aren't really keen on God. And so there's this kind of weird middle ground, but the integration of this hyper-focused niche of Christian yoga, if you will, Yoga Faith was born in 2013. And ever since then, like I said, the path to a dream isn't necessarily easy or straight or smooth, but you keep putting one foot in front of the other because you know that you heard the dream, you know that it was clear. And even when your bank account doesn't match it, or when you do need that paycheck or health insurance, you just keep working on that dream, dedicating a little bit of time here and a little bit of time there. And that all adds up. And here we are, 11 years after Yoga Faith has begun. We have instructors all over the world. We certify people through 30 different teacher training courses. But at the core, as you mentioned, my personal mission seeped into Yoga Faith. And when I learned that little 5-year-old girls were servicing up to 20 men a day, and I started traveling to these countries and really helping the children and the organizations have a sustainable method of getting these children to breathe for the first time, to trust, to maybe sit back to back with a little girl and tell her that her future looks nothing like her past.
Yes.
And so it's a beautiful thing to be able to take your dream and then go change the world with it and leave a legacy that's far beyond us.
So basically, what you do is helping people to create this deep connection to the love of Christ.
Yes, and in our faith, It is our way of worshiping and praying and meditating. So lots of people use yoga for lots of different things, and some in religion and prayer. So for us, it is like a whole body, a whole mind. You know, there's scriptures that say, love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength, with all your soul, with all
Yeah.
your breath. And so that's really what we do in Yoga Faith. Is we typically start out in prayer. There might be some worship music or instrumental. Most instructors have a cross, and we just go through these postures of prayer, meditation, scripture. It's a really wonderful thing. And then when you're doing it in a room full of your people, you get to do these out loud and worship out loud and really dance in his grace.
That's amazing. I love that. I definitely will have to go to Seattle and go and take one of your
Yes,
classes.
yes,
um,
yes.
okay, so explain us a little bit then for you, how was that process of creating that connection before you actually built this business where you can help others do the same? How was that process?
It is exactly that. It is a process. It is a transition. It is having faith. But as you know, even with something like this podcast, it is showing up. It is a dedicated time that you continue to show up. Probably when there was no listeners, probably when nobody came, you continue to do this work. And then all of a sudden, right? It seems like it's all of a sudden, but you've been doing the work and you've been showing up. So I continue to teach Yoga Faith classes. Sometimes nobody would show up. And God gave me this dream of having a school to teach other people this. And I held on really tightly to some things in my life that I didn't want to let go. Remember, we talked about so many passions, and it's like, okay, God, allow me to hone in on what I'm supposed to be doing here.
Yeah.
And, that season of frustration of not knowing what I'm supposed to be doing, we uprooted our lives from Oregon to Washington State for a dream my husband had, but it wasn't my dream. So it's like, what do you want? Where do you want me? What am I supposed to be doing? And honestly, there was a time of prayer and fasting where I emptied myself out and I just sought, and I was able to hear answers really clearly that way, because I didn't have all the chatter. I didn't have, the social media. I didn't have people's opinions. It was just me in prayer and fasting, seeking the Lord, seeking his voice of clarity. And that's when I heard clear. Okay, a school. I didn't really want to do a school because I know all the opinions out there. I was like, oh no, Lord. No, no, no. I was fasting for a job, but he gave me a purpose, and it's been a beautiful thing as we listen to that voice, or whomever you have as a higher source, to really hone in on that and say, I really feel, you'll feel it, right? You might not hear the Holy Spirit voice, but you'll hear your own soul and heart speaking that this is where my body navigates to. This is where my heart is. This is what I would do if nobody paid me for doing it. That's the thing you should be doing. If I cut you, what would you bleed? And for me, that's dance and worship. Those are two things that are just in me. They're part of my DNA. And so I'd ask you today, find out those things, or return to your first love. Come back to that. Again, those things that are easy, you've been doing them since you were a kid, you wouldn't have to be paid for them. What are those things? And for me, much like you, just continue to show up when maybe nobody else did. And there is a time to say, okay, maybe I did hear wrong, or maybe there's just constant brick walls. There is a time to shift and refocus, or maybe I'm not doing something right. But if you know in your heart that this is the path, then you stay on that path and you keep doing. And I promise you that your people will find you.
I love that. Oh my God, that's so inspiring. Now let's talk about how Michelle, the yoga therapist, turned into an author, because that's quite a transition, and that's quite being an author myself. I know that writing is not easy. So, what inspired you? What motivated you to write this book, and what's the book about?
My first book is called Stretching Your Faith, and I wrote it for the curriculum for my school because there was nothing else like it. I searched and searched for books that I could require for my school. Well, there was nothing that was so deep and robust and comprehensive of combining our faith with the practice of yoga while honoring the contributions of past yogis, while being built on the foundation of what I call our lineage, which is Christ. And so it just became this really large book. It's really detailed. It has pictures and modifications and ways to deepen. So for the beginner or the veteran yogi, there's something for everyone. There's a breath prayer and a meditation for each and every posture. Anyone can access these postures, but really it came from a real big need of not finding anything out there in the market. The second book, which could have been my first book, is Exit Wilderness. It's a roadmap out of hopelessness and depression of when I lost everything. This was pre-YogaFaith and pre-Stretching Your Faith, the story anyway. The book came out after Stretching Your Faith, but it's just my life story through an affair and adultery and divorce and losing everything and almost taking my own life. And these postures became really significant in my life as I was flat on my face because, I couldn't stand. I was very depressed, postures of depression. I really didn't know if I was going to be okay. I did go to commit to take my own life. And I heard the Holy Spirit say, you're going to kill your mom of a broken heart. And from that moment on, I knew that it wasn't the answer. It never is for anyone who's listening. There's always hope. But this book is really giving you a roadmap out of depression and hopelessness and really talks about my journey in finding out truly what those postures mean. I have a chapter called Eating Dust Bunnies, and I was flat on my face for, I don't know, it felt like 2 years of just going, just needing to get out of that pit and that very lost place.
Oh, wow. Definitely, those are books that if you are going through this situation or you feel like hopeless and that you don't have like any motivation to keep going, you should read this book and definitely know that you are loved, that you are you have purpose, and that you are not alone. So if you're listening out there, listen to Michelle's story and how she came out of that depression. And highly suggest that you go and grab her book and get inspired and reach out. Overall, reach out.
Right.
But thank you, Michelle, for sharing that part of your story. I am a very big advocate for mental health. So I love when people come here and share that story and motivate others and let them know that they're not alone and that there's always a way to move forward from whatever deep situation you feel you are in.
Right.
And that's amazing. I have to give you your kudos. You definitely you know in my opinion, right now, those books are definitely a big tool for anybody out there. So thank you for writing those.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes, well,
Um,
thanks for bringing them up. And you're right. There is always hope, but it doesn't always feel that way.
yeah,
We even growing up in a Christian home, I knew, this Christianese things that people say that, he's with the brokenhearted, it all sounds so good, but it doesn't feel that way. And I just
yeah,
need some really practical, tangible ways to actually get out of this depression and fog and suicidal tendencies. And so that book will give you some really tangible things. And I just want to mention one big thing is speaking things out loud began to change my world. For me as a Christian, I believe in God who created the universe with his words. He said, you're made in my image. You can do that too. But I'm just telling you, whatever you believe, start speaking out loud because your body listens. If you know that there's hope and that there's a reason to live, there's always a reason to live. You just start speaking that out loud. And I promise your life will get in line with the creative words that are coming out of your mouth.
yes, that's true. Thank you. Start taking
Yeah.
notes. If you haven't taken notes, you better start taking notes now.
Amen.
Oh my God, that's so good. And that is so true. The way that we speak to yourself, it determines a lot of the outcome of your day in your future actually materialize.
Absolutely.
So I am a firm believer of talking to myself and like having those minutes in the morning, especially in the morning, because to give me that way to kind of like power up, my set up my mindset and power
Yeah.
up myself and
Yeah.
get myself within the right energy and
Yeah.
connection with God. So talking to yourself and also throughout the day, because after as you go along with your projects and work and everything, there might be situations that you definitely have to tell yourself you're
That's
loved,
that's
your
right.
patience.
And I love how you say I talk to myself first thing in the morning because
Yeah,
Dagmar, if you don't talk to yourself first, somebody else is going to speak that into your life, whether it's your email or social media or whatever. Talk to yourself before anyone else can tell you about yourself. And I just want to say, for me, I was so depressed I couldn't even get out of bed. I had 2 dogs. I can't imagine doing this with kids. My mom would come over and let herself in and feed my dogs and open up my blinds, tell me I had to let the light in. Is how many of you know that light and dark, they don't mix? I wanted to be in the dark. Please leave me alone, right? Invite me to church, do all the things, but that confessional community is where your healing is going to take place. So when you said reach out, it's so true. I hope you guys are listening, because for me, God said, open the Bible. And I didn't even feel like getting out of bed, literally opening a Bible. And then he said, read. And then he asked me to read out loud. Well, I didn't feel like opening my mouth. I didn't even feel like brushing my teeth. How can I read a book? But
exactly.
he led me to the Psalms. I opened up the book of Psalms. It might be different for you or whatever you're reading out loud. But I started reading scripture out loud because I didn't know what to read. I didn't know what to say. I didn't have the tools I have today. This was early 2000s. And I got let go from my job because it was someone that it was at work and he didn't get let go. So I was filled with unforgiveness and bitterness and anger on top of losing my marriage, like all the things.
Yeah.
I did not know where this, good God, quote unquote, but these were self-inflicted wounds and I had to forgive myself. And that was the hardest and longest process. But
Oh, I love that you
we,
said that.
yeah, we have these self-inflicted wounds, right? And so
Yeah.
suffering comes, from things we can't control, from things that we can control,
Yeah.
or from following Christ causes suffering. So we know we're going to suffer. We just have to know what to do in that suffering, and knowing that we can have hope, we can have joy, we can have these things that we're talking about in the middle of these storms.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so good. Thank you, Michelle, for those words.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, we almost getting to the end of the interview, but before we get there, we have one more topic to talk about, and I want you to tell us how is that you become involved with helping human trafficking survivors, like how that started.
So it was about 12 years ago when I heard Joyce Meyer talking about 5-year-olds servicing men. And I just fell over weeping. I had no idea. I had a great childhood. When I was a 5-year-old girl, I was playing with dolls. I was doing all the things. And so I really never heard of this. And so I really started diving into the subject, and I connected with a few organizations that are really at the forefront of, different organizations changing laws or actually going over and rescuing or maiming the abusers, the different segments that we work with. But several times we've gathered YogaFaith teachers and just gone over there on our own dime. And, we went to Asia for a few months and were with the littles that were rescued. And then it was a Christian organization, actually, and we were able to get into the Bible each morning, then go move and dance. And it was just a beautiful time. But new studies show that, especially 3 months later, they get attached as kind of a secondary trauma. So we've started working with the organizations in a higher level where it's more sustainable, and an interpreter isn't needed, and it's people they already trust. Because when we go, we need interpreters. Everything is double the time. And so we've kind of started working in a new way instead of directly with the survivors, but it was just something that was close to my heart. And then with the ministry of YogaFaith, able to go teach breath, movement, and mix this with our faith when possible with the Christian organizations, these little girls would come alive, and little boys as well, but majority is little girls. And so it's been a journey, and we've seen some instant healing, but most often it's not instant. It's a period of time of them learning to trust. And a lot of that yoga therapy training comes into play because it's a trial and error. You know, let's try this. Okay, that doesn't work. Or there's a lot of trauma that we try to figure out and try to move through. So we're always adjusting. And it's like that in normal yoga therapy cases or yoga classes. It's like, okay, this breathing doesn't work. If somebody was choked, you know, we find out really fast that that's triggering. And so let's switch gears. And it's just figuring out what works for them. It's always different, but I do feel like it's always led by God. He always shows me these things that really work. One in particular was really special, of not being able to take a deep breath, of this little girl I worked with for 3 months in Asia. And we put a stuffed animal. It was just an idea, you know, put the stuffed animal on and see if we can get, you know, you're on your back, and see if we can get the giraffe as high to the ceiling as possible. So then they take this big, deep breath, and it's just finding out what works. And I would say that for anyone listening as well, find out what works for you to take a deep breath and to activate that parasympathetic nervous system, because that's where we ultimately want to be. We want to feel like we're in that lazy boy chair, curled up with a blanket in front of the fireplace and some hot chocolate with our little kitty or puppy on our lap. That's how we want to feel all the time. Like, you can just imagine that, right? But that's not how we feel in today's world. So however we can get there, and take deep breaths, or go for a walk during lunch break, or whatever it might be, to connect with nature, and you know, put down our gadgets, put down our socials, and just really engage with people one-on-one, eye-to-eye, face-to-face, engage with nature, engage with God, and just start looking up and enjoying life, practicing presence.
I love that. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing your story. You are an amazing woman. God bless you for everything that you do. Um, from all the things that you have done in your life, what would you say is the most rewarding one?
For sure, working with trafficked survivors, because God has kind of enmeshed everything I do, whether it's dance, piano, lead worship at church. I get to do all of that and see right in front of my face somebody connecting to Christ, or connecting to me, or seeing that light maybe for the first time ever. So I have to say that's a very rewarding legacy to leave.
Wow. Well, one more question. What will you tell our audience today of what they can start doing to create that connection?
To bridge the connection, is that what you said?
Yes.
Oh man, I would just say work on your dream every single day, even if it's a little bit at a time. Dagmar, you mentioned authoring and books. If that is in your heart, then just write every day. If you want to learn piano or an instrument, play every day, practice every day, even 5 or 10 minutes, to get that in your heart, to breathe life, to fan that flame and stir up your gifts. And if it's a story, like I said, just dedicate time each and every day to that dream.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing your story, for leaving this audience inspired. I cannot thank you enough for sharing your story. We're going to give you a big round of applause for it. Can the audience connect with you?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for creating space for myself and others to come and do this. That's really awesome. If I had that fancy applause, I would do that too. But thank you so much for having me on. Yes, you can find me at yogafaith.org or YogaFaith on Insta or Facebook. That's where I don't actually hang out there. have this shirt that says social and then media, and there's a greater sign pointing to the social. So you won't actually find me hanging out there, but you can connect with me there. And I would love to connect with you. I travel all over the world. So my schedule is on yogafaith.org. And so come say hi, connect, come to a training, whatever floats your boat. I'd love to meet you.
Awesome. Again, their website is yogafaith.org, and you can connect with her at Instagram or Facebook at YogaFaith. Thank you, Michelle, again for your time, for sharing your amazing story. And you guys, I mean, do you love this? Because I loved her story, right? I love Michelle's story. In the meantime, until the next one, don't forget to unlock your potential and be fearless. Bye.